So you've decided to do an interview. What do? Okay. The first thing that you want to do is establish the guidelines between you and that person that is going to do the interview. You do have some rights. For example, if you get a cold call from a reporter who wants to do an on-the-spot interview with you on the phone, and you don't really feel prepared to do that interview at that particular moment, just say to them, this is not really a good time for me. Could I call you back maybe later, maybe tomorrow at 3, and let's do the interview then? It's not going to take very much of your time, only 15 to 20 minutes, but you want to feel prepared for that interview before it starts. The more prepared that you are and the more prepared that you feel, then the better your chances for a successful interview are going to be. You also want to limit the interview to your area of expertise. You need to know before you go into that interview the main 2 or 3 points that you want to convey to your audience, not to the reporter, but to your audience, the public. You sit down before the interview ever starts and write out those main 2 or 3 points. And I'm not saying memorize those because that would sound rehearsed and unnatural, but you want to get familiar with them. And if you even want to maybe write them out in bullet points and keep them before you so you can stay on topic. You want to limit the interview to what you feel comfortable about and what you know better than anyone else, what happens in your classroom. That's your area of expertise. And if the interview strays to maybe a policy area or something that you don't feel comfortable with, I'm going to show you how to use some bridges to pull the conversation back in to what you feel comfortable talking about in the interview. And then if it's for a newspaper interview, then record the interview. Be sure you tell the reporter that you're going to record it. And what that will allow you to do is allow you to come back later and sit down and listen to the interview and reflect on how you did. As teachers, we know that reflection is one of the best ways that we can improve our performance in the classroom. In the same way, reflection after an interview is going to give you the chance to improve and become better at the process. It will also allow you, after the report is published, to be able to compare and see, was it reported accurately? Was that really what I said? Also, if it's for a TV interview, what you want to do is ask the producer or ask the reporter either for a copy of the interview or ask them when it's going to run and where it could be posted at. This will allow you, again, that chance for reflection and to go back and be able to maybe share it on social media with others in the education community. Sure, if you feel like that you misspoke, if you feel like that there was something that you said that wasn't entirely accurate, be sure and contact that reporter before the newspaper article is run or before the TV interview is aired. Contact them and say, I think I misspoke, or I think I said something that wasn't quite right, and I want to correct that. That reporter will definitely appreciate that contact and make sure that that gets corrected before it's aired or before it's run. You definitely need to do, we talked about this a little bit before, know exactly what you want to achieve before you go into the interview. Again, those 2 or 3 main points, you want to hone in on those, drive those home. That's what your interview is going to be about, is those 2 or 3 main points. You want to clearly and concisely communicate your message to your audience. To do that, we're going to use something that we call the ABCs. To use the ABCs, you're going to first acknowledge the question that you've been asked by the reporter. You can either acknowledge it by simply nodding your head and smiling, or say, that's a great question. Somehow or another acknowledge that you heard the question. And then, if it's a question that you don't feel comfortable answering, or it's a question that you feel like is out of the area of your expertise, or it's off those 2 or 3 main points that you've decided this interview needs to be about, then use something that we call a bridge. A bridge is going to allow you to pivot the discussion back to those main points. If the interviewer has asked some question that you feel is off topic, you can say, maybe, you know, that's very interesting, but as a teacher, this is what I see in my classroom, and then bridge the discussion back to what those main points that you want your interview to be about, and then communicate that message clearly and concisely to your audience. Speak with authority in your field. Don't ever try to speak for another group or another person. Always speak from your viewpoint, your authority as a teacher. You might say, you know, as a teacher, this is what I see in my classroom. Or, as a teacher, this is what my parents are saying to me. You don't try to speak for another group. Keep it in your field of expertise. Show empathy and understanding. If you can have a good relationship with the reporter and show empathy and understanding to your audience, that's going to make your chances of a successful interview just that much greater. Before the interview ever starts, you need to know who you're dealing with. You need to find out as much as you can about the reporter. Has the reporter reported on this topic before? Was it a positive report? Was it negative? Or was it balanced where they were only reporting on the facts, on the news itself? Or maybe is the reporter never reported on this topic at all? If that reporter has not reported on that topic at all, this is a great chance for you to give that reporter some background information on your topic. That reporter is going to be very appreciative of being able to gain that information to study on the topic before they ever do the interview. That's going to make his questions that much more on topic, and that's going to make that interview go much, much more smoothly. And then rehearse your closing. It's most times when a reporter will do an interview with you, whether it's on air or it's for a newspaper article, at the end they will ask you, is there anything else that you would like to add? This is your chance. No matter if the interview has gone awful or it's been wonderful or it's been something in between, this is your chance to get those 2 or 3 main points, to hone into them. So you want to have that closing, you want to have it practiced, you want to be ready right when that reporter says, is there anything you want to add? Yes. This is what I've been seeing in my classroom. This is what I know. And then give those points to that reporter. Those are the ones that are more than likely would be aired in the interview, or those are the ones that will be more than likely quoted in that newspaper article. Be prepared. Be prepared. Just like in the classroom, one of the greatest things that you can do as a teacher to increase the possibilities of success for your lessons, for your students, is your preparation. The exact same thing applies here. Prepare. Know your material. Practice questions and answers. Get a teacher across the hall to be the reporter and practice those questions that you think that you might get in the interview. Practice beforehand, and that way you're ready for those tough questions when they come along. We talked about this a few minutes ago, but you want to set guidelines and you want to know the expectations for the interview. Contact the reporter ahead of time and say, you know, how is this going to go? What can I expect? You wouldn't want to be blindsided when you get there and find out that it's a call-in show and you're going to have angry parents calling you on the line and you're going to have to answer their questions. You wouldn't want that. So you want to know What is it going to be like before you get there? And ask, what are the questions that I'm going to hear? The reporter will probably give you some information, but now don't just zero in on what they said, because they may or may not stick to it, but that will help you be prepared before the interview ever actually starts. After the interview, follow up. If you promised the reporter some extra information, maybe you gave some statistics in your interview and you promised him that you would give him the source, then you follow up and you give him that information. If it's appropriate, then follow up with a thank you note to the producer of the show or to the reporter for taking the time to interview on this topic that you think is of great importance to education. And then offer yourself as a future source of information for that reporter. They are always looking for experts that they can quote on the field of education. And you, as a teacher, you are the expert of what happens in your classroom. So offer yourself as a source of information. Again, make sure that you clarify or you correct anything that you feel like you misspoke before that report is aired or before that article is run. Okay, the big day is here. Lights, camera, action. I know you're probably going to be a little nervous, but it's okay. Same way we talked about a few minutes ago, you want to prepare. And as women and probably men, you're thinking, well, what will I wear? What will I wear? And actually, that's pretty important. On that day, you don't want to wear anything that has a bright or a bold pattern, because that's going to interfere with the camera. And you want the focus not to be on what you're wearing. You want the focus to be on you, your face, your message. So don't wear anything that's got just a real bold pattern or women jewelry that clanks or jingles, because that jewelry is going to interfere with the microphone, and that microphone will pick up that sound. You also don't want to wear anything that's bright and shiny, because the lights will pick up that shine and that will interfere. So, mild tones, solid colors in the medium tone range, that would be a great thing to wear on that day. If you're going to be interviewed maybe in a group with other teachers or some sort of a group, discuss with the other members what each one of you are going to wear. Because believe it or not, Twinkies happen, especially with men. It's real easy for men to wear khakis and the same color jacket, and so you don't want to look like that. You want to look a little bit different. And one more thing, men especially, you don't want to wear a solid white shirt without a jacket, because that would interfere with the camera. And try to avoid something green in case you have potentially something that you would do in front of a green screen. So those are just a few tips on what to wear. But the main point on your clothing is to look professional. One of the big things that we have in teaching right now is that we want to be treated like the professionals that we are. So when you show up to an interview, look like a professional. Business casual would always be a safe attire to wear, but you want to look professional on that day when you show up for the interview, because you want to be seen as someone who is an expert in the field, who can be taken seriously about this topic, that can speak confidently about your topic that you've got in education. You want to appear credible, confident, and ready to speak on this topic. We've already talked about it ahead of time. Do your homework, know what's going to happen, know your subject matter, have those 2 or 3 main points ready to go so you can really hone in on those points. Ask for a copy after it's over, but then don't forget to smile. A smile is going to make you appear confident. A smile is going to make you appear as an expert, that you're relaxed, that you know what you're talking about. And then keep your answers concise. Believe it or not, in a TV interview, if you go on and on and on about a subject, it's going to make you look less credible. we know that in the land of TV, newscasts are given in short 30 to 60-second clips. And so you don't want to have this long speech that gets cut down and doesn't appear to where you know what you're talking about. So you want to speak in one-liners. You want to speak in those short sound bites that the interview can use. So you don't want to ramble. You want to know you know your message, hone it. And even those stories can help you stay on message. Take those stories that you want to tell about what's going on in your classroom, take them and cut them down to the most essential parts, the essential points, so you can clearly and concisely convey your message through that story. Be real. You want to try to get to know your person who's doing the interview with you before it starts. Maybe it might even be just a few minutes before the cameras start rolling. Get to know that person. That's going to make you feel more relaxed, and so you can let your true self shine when that camera starts rolling.